I was driving through blinding snow for 9 hours straight, my knuckles white on the steering wheel as I navigated the treacherous mountain roads from Seattle to Denver. Everything for Amanda, my wife of 7 years. The chocolate cake from her favorite bakery sat carefully secured in the passenger seat, alongside a small gift bag containing the diamond earrings she had been eyeing for months. Our marriage had been strained lately, but this surprise birthday visit would change everything. I could already picture her face lighting up when I walked through that door. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and subscribe if you have ever gone above and beyond for someone you love. The relationship between Amanda and me began like something out of a romantic comedy. We met during sophomore year of college when she accidentally spilled coffee on my laptop in the university library. Instead of being angry, I was instantly captivated by her blue eyes and genuine apology. She insisted on buying me dinner to make up for potentially destroying my term paper. That dinner turned into breakfast the next morning, and we were inseparable after that. 7 years of marriage had followed 4 years of dating. The early days were filled with weekend road trips to random destinations, cooking elaborate meals together in our tiny apartment kitchen, and staying up until dawn just talking about everything and nothing. We built a life in Denver, bought our modest suburban home 3 years ago, and had been discussing starting a family soon. But the last year had been different. Amanda received a major promotion at her marketing firm, which meant more travel and longer hours. I was proud of her success, but the distance it created between us was undeniable. My job as a software engineer allowed me to work remotely, which meant I spent many nights alone in our house while she was in Chicago, New York, or Los Angeles closing deals. Our conversations grew shorter, our intimate moments fewer. The last time she had looked at me with that spark in her eyes was months ago. But I refused to believe we could not find our way back to each other. That is why I decided to drive all the way from Seattle, where I had been visiting my parents, to surprise her on her 32nd birthday, instead of flying home the next day as planned. I took 2 days off work for this surprise. The weather reports warned of a massive winter storm moving through the Rocky Mountains, but I was determined. I called her sister Natalie to coordinate the surprise, making sure Amanda would be home on her birthday evening and not working late or out with friends. Natalie seemed strangely hesitant on the phone. There was an odd pause when I explained my plan, but she quickly recovered, assuring me Amanda would be at home and that she would be there too to help with the surprise. Looking back, I should have paid more attention to that pause. The drive was brutal. What should have been a 14-hour journey stretched to nearly 18 as I navigated icy roads and near zero visibility. The mountain passes were barely open, with police checkpoints verifying that vehicles had chains or snow tires. Multiple times I considered turning back or stopping at a hotel until the storm passed, but the thought of missing her birthday kept me going. During those long hours of driving, I replayed our happier moments like a movie in my mind. Our honeymoon in Costa Rica, where we zip-lined through the rainforest and made love on a deserted beach. The weekend we spent painting our new home, ending up with more paint on ourselves than the walls. The surprise anniversary trip to New Orleans I planned last year before her promotion, when she cried and said I was the most thoughtful husband in the world. I believed this birthday surprise would remind her of those days. That chocolate cake from the small bakery in my hometown had significance. It was the same cake I had shipped to her dorm room for her birthday during our first year of dating. She had declared it the best cake she had ever tasted, and I had made sure she got one every year since, even when we were apart. This year I was delivering it personally despite the storm. By the time I arrived in